All right.
Hey,
Hello.
hey, welcome to Women Conquer Business. I'm Jen McFarland, joined by Shelly Carney. And this week we are talking about something that's actually core to the mission of this show. I was listening to the intro and I was like, oh, yeah, today we're going to slay some marketing overwhelm.
Woohoo.
Woohoo! So we are talking about how to dissolve information overload and start marketing. But before we begin, how are you doing, Shelly?
I'm doing very well, thank you. We're having a little bit more snow overnight, but the roads are clear, so I made it over to the studio today. So
Nice.
excited about that. Our M&M Messages and Methods show featured Jen yesterday,
Yeah,
so that
super
was
fun.
fun. We get to see each other 2 days in a row. That's cool. Talk
Super
about
cool.
marketing and all those good things. Um, Let me tell you something though about what I am not doing well with. I am sick to death of hearing listening to my podcasts come on and, oh, you should learn all about TikTok and cryptocurrency and NFTs and Web3 and la la la. And come here and look at this. And oh, I'm over here doing this now. Come join me. And I'm so
All the shiny
tired of it.
objects. And
Oh my
and
gosh.
it's a lot. And the NFT, I've read about cryptocurrency NFTs. It's a distraction
Mm,
in my opinion.
mhm.
And I know that there are some people who are making some money with it and it's great for them. For many small business owners, it's not a real viable solution to really anything, and it is information overload. It will take you away from your mission, I believe. And it is not really, unless you are an NFT company, like it's not core to your mission. So it's definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah,
Um,
but
what is it
well,
about that that really is getting under your skin?
it's getting under my skin because I believe what you believe, and I've heard you say this over and over again. Uh, Focus on your mission. Focus on your target audience. Don't get distracted with a bunch of shiny objects and run off in different directions because when you have a strategy and a plan in place, stick to it for a while. Make sure,
Yeah.
you gotta give it some time to work, right?
And then
And
I think,
when we're
did I
always
mention that
chasing things,
yesterday?
it's crazy.
Yeah, did I mention that yesterday? Like
You've
one of
mentioned it a
the
lot, and I
worst.
appreciate it because I need to hear it.
Oh, you do? One of the worst things of you can do in marketing is decide to change everything
Yeah.
because you haven't maybe given it enough time to work.
Or because it's
And
not fun anymore, or yeah, for
yeah,
whatever reason, just keep
yeah.
changing.
And
Or because, so and so says I should try TikTok, so I'm gonna run over and try TikTok
I'm
now.
gonna go try TikTok. Yeah, that FOMO that's on the sign behind me, that fear of missing out, it's strong. And
Mhm,
as business owners, we are inundated with
mm,
all kinds of quote unquote opportunities, whether it's Web3 or NFTs or this new app that's gonna make my life wonderful, or whatever that kryptonite is, and that's what today is about, like acknowledging the kryptonite, which is that overload, because I believe a lot of bad decisions happen when you're actually overloaded. I could be wrong. And I know that some people are the opposite. There's all different types of people in this world. What we're talking about in this show isn't so much that analysis paralysis, which is the other side of it. Um, it's more of like what happens when you're overloaded, which I think is different. You can overload yourself and not take action, but that's different than like analyzing everything. Um, this is about information bombarding you, and when you become aware of it, what happens next?
mhm.
So, Shelly, we were talking before the show. We have different takes on this, different things that happen, how we manage our day. So, how do you know that you've reached that point of information overload?
I know because I get in a place where I'm like, "I just can't deal anymore, just turn it off, just turn it off, I can't even look at it. It's too much, and I'll think about it later." Um Because if I'm looking for a solution to a problem, I'm looking here and there, and I'm talking to Toby about it, and maybe I bring it up with you. I'm like, "Oh, what's the answer?" And then I'm studying and researching, and then it's just like, "Ugh, I can't handle it anymore. It's
Can't
too
handle it
much."
anymore.
Turn it off.
So, do you turn it off?
I do.
Are
I
you
just
pretty
turn it off,
are
and
you
sometimes
pretty
I don't go
disciplined
back.
about that? That you're just like, "I'm turning it off now?"
Yeah. It's I think it's just like you talked about having 50 tabs open on your computer. I can't do that.
I
Mine now
think that
is about
I
10.
saw I saw a physical reaction when I said I have 50 tabs open sometimes, and you're like, "Oh, I
Well,
can't."
they have those even the groupings now, and then you can put everything in the group and then just open that one, and it's like and then there's 50 more, and there's layers, and I'm like, "No, just give me 3 things to think about, that's plenty." If I need to think more, then I'm gonna write it down and that's what I do. I keep my little notebook in front of me all the time, and if something pops into my head that I need to do, write it down real quick and then continue on. Because if I don't write it down, I'll forget it, or I'll get distracted and go do that instead of the thing I was
Sure.
working on. So, yeah, it's a lot.
So, in my do you ever get information overload by, say, reading the news or watching the news or going on social media? Or are you very disciplined in those areas as well, where you're like, I'm not gonna read for more than 30 minutes, or I'm not gonna engage for more than 30 minutes, or
I'm less likely to go down those rabbit holes because uh, I'm aware, I guess. It's like some people get on TikTok and they can't get off.
Mhm.
The first time I tried TikTok a few years ago, I started to do that. I started to go, okay, now, video after video after they're 15 seconds long. We're just like go be on there for a minute, and then you're on there for an hour, and it steals your life. So I try to be more aware of things like that, like going into the news, and I'm to be very honest with you, I don't watch the news. I watch the late night shows, and they tell me the news that everybody knows so that I can keep up with the things that everybody knows, but I don't need to
Right.
dive into the
Well, yeah, we canceled cable. We had YouTube TV. We were streaming cable services and stuff, and we got rid of that because I was like, I don't need to watch that much news. And then we also were now we are really structured where we watch like one program and that's it. Like just a nightly news to like
Mhm.
get it and then we move on so that we don't end up doing that. One of the stories that I like to tell about, but I am an avid reader and that's the place where I have to watch out because I love to read and not necessarily the news. But just reading and researching and I have the Apple News app on my phone and I can just it's a subscription one, which means it's pretty unlocked and I can read whatever I want. And the story I like to tell about that is I was reading and then there was a link about Anderson Cooper. And so I read about Anderson Cooper. And then before I knew it, I was like reading about his partner's life. And yeah, I mean, it just like had gotten into this big rabbit hole. And
Yeah.
so I guess that like what I have started to do in that information overload is become more aware of like, am I just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling,
Mhm.
or am I really far afield from what it was that my original intention was? And so I'm the one who's more likely to have like all of the tabs open and work on a few
Mhm.
things at a time. And I'm
My
also
husband's
the
like that
person.
too, so
What?
my husband's like that. He's got tons of tabs open. He's got a game on in front of him. Over here, he's got some kind of documentary or something is playing. When I walk into his office, all of this is going on, and I'm like, "Wow." Maybe that's a little stressful. I don't know, but it's what he
Yeah, I
does.
don't do all that. Uh, I think that I have become much more sensitive to being overwhelmed since Peace Corps, living in a really quiet country,
Mm,
not having all of the stuff
mhm.
and things. We didn't have internet in the same way. We didn't have all of the shiny objects, and I think that even in the last 15 years, I haven't completely gone back to the way I was.
Mm,
I'm a lot more sensitive to it. So I
mhm.
don't do all of that. I do tend, and this is the thing I personally have been working on, to start a lot of things all at the same time. and I've realized how much my productivity, how I feel at the end of the day, it doesn't feel as good for me. So I've started reading Atomic Habits. I know that you've been talking about reading the Daily Stoic. There's just a lot of things that we do personally to keep us in a place of productivity, maybe feeling better. And then it allows us to have a clearer head when we do things like marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we can kind of, and I think when you stay in touch, like you've talked about meditation, and journaling, of course, and when you stay in touch with who you are and understand your own values and your own priorities, and you have that firmly, in front of you all the time, then when opportunities and things start coming your way, you're more likely to say, does that align with my values? Is that a priority?
Yes.
Is that something I should be working on? And if so, why? What's it gonna do for me?
Absolutely. And I think that if you find yourself in a state of overwhelm, particularly when you're talking about marketing your business, because I think a lot of people get a little tight when they think about marketing their business. It tends to give us a little bit of fear.
Mhm.
And so it's easy to overwhelm ourselves with options. And I do agree with you that when that happens, one of the best things you can do is be very grounded in what it is that you do, what it is that your core beliefs. I think that sometimes meditation can really center us a lot in that journaling, personal reflection.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's again something you need to write on your calendar or schedule time for. Make sure that you're doing it every day because it's one thing to say, "Oh yeah, meditation, I'm going to get to that." And there's and there's another thing that when you say this is part of my morning routine and I can't go on with my day until I've done it. And then when you try that, now I tried it for a year. I was really good about meditating every day for at least the first 6 months, and, uh, and stuck with it pretty well. There were only a few days I missed throughout the year, and once I realized, uh, that practice and, saw the benefits of it, that's when I realized it is a practice, and it's one of those things that you do so that when you need it, you have practiced it enough that it's right there for you. You can lean into those skills that come with it when you do it every day. And it doesn't matter if you do it just for 5 minutes. Do it for 1 minute if you're new to it. But
Yeah.
and then build up. I built up to where I was able to do it for 20 minutes sometimes if I felt like I had the time and I just wanted to explore a little bit longer, I could do it for up to 20, 30 minutes. Um, but most likely I would do it for about 10 minutes every day. And
Yeah.
just having that practice keeps you centered, gives you that full well of resources that you can dip into when you need it. I'm stressed today. Let me dip into my well of what
Yeah.
I've learned about myself over the past 6 months.
I totally agree. And I think too, when you are practicing stillness, then you become much more aware of when information overload hits
It's
because
true.
you're feeling the opposite. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, you notice it
You
because
notice it.
like you said, you're aware of yourself. Here's what I am feeling, and that is not what I want to be feeling. And when you can notice and start naming those feelings, then you can process them and you can find out why am I feeling this way? And then you can, get to the root of the problem and say, is this something that's necessary in my life or should I move it out?
So, I want to ask everybody, like, how do you know when you're experiencing information overload? Put it in the chat. Do you
Yeah.
can we show it? How
Yeah.
do you look at this. Look, we're just
You
like
did
I'm
it.
just learning all kinds of things here today.
Thank
So, how do you know you're experiencing information overload? We've talked a little bit about what we know, and I think some people, they also talk about, doom scrolling and
you. Well, I feel like scrolling and squirrel sound a lot alike for a reason, it was like squirreling. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And the more you do it, the more you reduce your attention span. And that's why you have to practice things like meditation and journaling to grow your attention span back to a reasonable amount so that you can
Sure.
be productive and you can focus on a job that you need to get done until it's done.
So I also find, and so if you have questions about, if you want to share and chime in about how you're experiencing it and what you do, that would be great. We will share your comments with
Mhm.
everybody who, whether they're listening or watching right now. I do think that one of the things that seems to work with what you've mentioned, and I'm wondering if you can speak to this as well, is my husband is amazing at this, by the way. Like, I've never seen somebody do this in the wild before. You know, like, he's amazing at making lists,
Mm,
and he is very focused on, like, he makes lists for his weekend, and
mhm.
I've always thought that that was amazing. So, do you find that by doing things like journaling or meditation or getting more zero in and clear on your mission, like, do you make lists then to make sure that you're following up on it, or what do you do next?
I do. Like I said, when I'm sitting there working or sometimes when I'm, watching a video, it's funny because if I have to sit still and watch a video on the computer, that's when my mind gets is doing all these things. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, idea, idea. So I have my pad there and I write things down.
Yeah.
It's just don't forget to do this or that or the other thing. And oh yeah. Um, so yes, I do make a list. And very often it's kind of a task list. Oh, I need to get this done today or sometime this week or whatever. And then I'll just have it there in front of me on my desk the whole week and I'll just check it off as I get it done. Yeah, I like lists.
I do too. I usually I need to get more granular about the lists. I saw a graphic on social that was so true. It was like, and it's all about like how big the goals are that you set. And it was kind of like, if you set the steps to get to the next goal, if it's too much and you can't actually step up it, that's
Mhm,
really ineffective. So it was like a picture of like steps, and
mhm,
they were too big. And then the other graphic was like, "Why don't you do it like this?" And it was like a regular staircase, like, leading to the goal.
mhm,
So, I feel like what lists can do if you're reasonable, and this is what I mean about my own, thing, is I'll make a list and I'm like, "I'm gonna do 10 things today." And then I get, like, 2 done and I feel defeated, you know?
mhm.
Uh, so what I think I need to do now, and what I'm committing to now, is making reasonable lists of what could happen in a day, and following that. And part of the reason for that is I haven't been a content creator like I am moving into now. I have been more of a consultant. So like my workflow was totally different. I'm going through like a transition now with Epiphany courses where I thought, "Oh, I'll just make 3 courses in a day." And I'm like, and
Oh,
that's not
wow.
possible. Like, I had this, like, whole idea about, like, how many courses I was gonna make and what it was gonna be like, and, it's not possible because part of it is when you've been I've been working in marketing for 25 years, so some
Mhm.
things are pretty quick, when I'm working with clients and things are happening. I am not as practiced at, it turns out, at building courses in Teachable. So it takes longer than I had thought. So I would say one of the things that you can get really overwhelmed by is making these massive lists before you have really like formulated your plans, before you've really worked through like what that workflow could look like. And it can be really discouraging, and it can actually stop you from moving forward with whether it's your marketing or another project. Is set reasonable goals, set reasonable to-do lists, and if it doesn't seem reasonable, don't do what I did. Get to it quicker that you realize you've overwhelmed yourself with like too much stuff, because information overload doesn't just have to come from external sources. It can also come from within, and those pressures that we put on ourselves. At least that's what I think. I don't know. Do you ever put too much pressure on yourself like that?
No, perhaps I used to, but I've learned over the process of doing live streaming and learning, new things, working with clients. We just pivoted in the last year, so we started this new business, and we didn't know. We had come up with a design back in May. "Oh, this is what we're doing," and then, it continues to evolve as you work through the process and this
Mhm.
isn't working, that we like this kind of client. It's always a perfecting process. So you have to give yourself grace to say
Yes.
when you're doing anything new, um, I'm going to be learning. I'm going to be learning Teachable. I'm going to be learning how to put a course together. I'm going to be learning how to video record myself. I'm going to be learning the editing process, whatever it is that you're learning. Even if you kind of know or have done things similar in the past, each new thing requires, that you work through it in order to say, and I'm still doing this myself. I'm writing an
Oh,
after
yeah.
show checklist. After the show's over, I need to do this, and this, and I have to write it down because I might forget otherwise because I get distracted, right? And I think that's a really a powerful thing to have because then I can share it with other people. Here's what I
Yeah.
do. I do this, and this, and I have my checklist, and it keeps me on track. So give yourself grace and understand that it's a learning process and it's going to take time to perfect the process.
And that is the piece that I wanted to swing back to, is the give yourself grace.
Mhm,
So, and I'm one of the people who has to give myself grace. I tend to be a perfectionist. That means that sometimes things don't happen on the schedule. And
mhm,
then after I do something, then I give myself a hard time about it. There are other people who can sometimes give themselves too much grace and then they never get anything done. So I am one of those people who needs to give myself grace and
mhm,
acknowledge what I have done. And I think that we all need to give ourselves grace
mhm.
and make sure we're not giving ourselves so much grace that we never get things out of the door.
But if it's something that comes up, for instance, you had to dog sit and Teddy would not leave you alone. So you have to spend time with the dog and you're like, okay, I have to get this done, Teddy. Well, people are going through that with children, with elderly
Oh yeah,
parents, anything else that they have to take care of in their lives, making doctor's appointments and things that pop up that you have to take care of, that you've got to fit into your life. And you have to give yourself the grace to say, you know what? I did my best. And tomorrow,
absolutely.
I'm gonna
Oh,
do my best again.
can we get back to Teddy really quick? So
Sure.
Teddy is my mom's dog. I am back in Portland now after spending, I don't know, 10 days or something in Idaho dog sitting. So here's what I learned about Teddy. So Teddy had his own to-do list. And once I figured out what was happening, I talked to my mom and she's like, "You're absolutely right. He is used to this." So every day at 4 o'clock Boise time, Teddy was like, "I don't know what you're doing in this office, but that's just not working for me anymore." And I realized that my mom would always watch The Closer and Major Crimes at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So Teddy was like, "No, we sit on the couch now and
Mhm,
we cuddle and we watch TV."
mhm,
And once I realized that I needed to take like a little break to share time with him in this way, it was like a non-negotiable for Teddy. Like Teddy
mhm,
was like, "You cannot carry on with whatever you want to do until this happens." Once I acknowledged that, then what I would do is I would take that break with him and then we would go and I would go back to work because he was like, "No, I had my needs filled. So now you can get back to doing whatever it is that you wanted."
mhm.
And I think that that's actually another analogy that you can like take out into, life is it that's what happens sometimes. And so then I had to like share I had to acknowledge that he had needs and fulfill them. And then I had to show myself grace and say, "You're not going to work for those 2 hours."
Yeah.
And then figure out like if that meant I was going to get up earlier or if it meant I was going to work after watching a couple crime shows with my dog, my mom's dog. I mean, it was
Wait,
just
did
kind
you
of
try to watch anything else and he didn't like it, or did you just stick with the crime shows because you like them?
I like him too.
Oh, okay.
You know, and when I visit my mom, we watch the Closer and Major Crimes together. So, yeah. So anyway, that's like another thing that could happen too. Like you have, especially working from home, and you know, my dogs decide when I need to pay attention to them. I have a little sign on my door so that my husband doesn't come in. But sometimes something comes up and
Yeah.
you have to deal with it, and I think that that happens a lot. The key is, though, I think, and you tell me how you manage it, that when you have things that absolutely have to get done, you have to have a way to say, get out of this other space and find ways to get things accomplished so that you can get out and start taking action on the most important things.
Yeah. I think the best way to do that is take a step back and say to yourself, "What's my priorities? What are my values? And how can I best meet those?" If you have a choice between A and B, playing with the dog or getting your work done, what's my choice here? What's my values? What's my purpose in life? You know, I love for you, and I'm saying this for you. I love my dogs. I chose to have these dogs in my life, and I choose to spend time with them. And dogs are like kids. They need you when they need you, and sometimes you just have to fit them in. But if you're in the middle of a live show, like right now, that's 1 hour a week where you say, "That's it. I have to have
Yeah.
this," and because you give your time when you can, then they will give you that time when you need it.
Or they're locked downstairs as they are right now because
Yeah,
they don't have
and
boundaries.
don't lock your kids in the,
Do not
basement.
lock your kids in the basement. This is a pets
For
are different
people
than
who have
people.
kids, figure things out too, and they go, "Okay, well, I
Right.
set my kids up with a tablet with these cartoons, and it's gonna last for the length of the live stream." I've heard people say that, and then when that live stream is done, then they're open to being interrupted by their kids the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, and there was one day that I really had to get something out, you know, and so Teddy, and this was after I figured out like we have this time that we have to hang out on the couch, and then I just said, "Hey, Bubsy, we got to go back in the office now." And I'd wear him out to the point where he would sleep again, and then I worked late into the night because I still had to tackle the list.
Mhm.
And I think that that's sometimes, you know, and it also meant that I had to acknowledge that in order to get that stuff done, like all the other tabs had to be closed. There couldn't be, you know, I'm a big proponent of deep work. Cal
Mhm.
Newport wrote a lot of books about this, and he is a digital minimalist, which is really fascinating to me for a computer scientist to be a digital minimalist. Like he's someone in computers, but then he also knows there's so much out there that can distract us from whatever it is that we're trying to do. So I remember like I need to spend like and I find that if I can do deep work, meaning like everything else is closed and this is the only thing I'm doing, I'm more effective and I get way more done. And that was what I was doing where all these like whether you call them Pomodoro sessions or deep work sessions, I was doing all of these like non undistracted times. And there are a lot of tools out there that can help you do that. You know, there's Cave Day, which is communal working, co-working. That's a little bit more expensive, but there's also Focus Mate, which you can schedule up to 5 free sessions a month, and it's basically you and one other person saying, "I'm gonna do this one thing,"
Hmm.
and everything goes mute and you work. So, those are kind of some ways that you can, uh, beat away the distractions, beat away the information overload, and then I would suggest that we you have to start really focusing and starting your marketing. We can be so overloaded with with videos and apps and tools and contacts from marketers and they make everything sound phenomenal.
Mhm.
And it's just like Shelly said at the beginning, you know, now everybody's talking about web3 and NFTs and crypto. Knowing what it is that you have as goals and what's most important can really prevent you from falling down those rabbit holes because there's always going to be something and help you and guide you into what it is that will be most effective for you.
Yeah. Let's talk a little about FOMO. I see the sign behind your head. Fear of missing out. We all have that fear that we're gonna be left behind. "Oh my gosh, if only I would have gotten on YouTube in 2006 and stayed with it, I would be in a billionaire by now," or whatever. Um, or if I'd had invested in Bitcoin back in the early 2000s, or if I'd only, and I fear missing out again. I didn't get in on the Bitcoin to start with, so maybe I should get in on it now because I don't want to miss out. And all of these things are firing off in your head. I am afraid I'm going to miss out, and then I'll be left behind. And that taps into our deep fear of abandonment, right? We don't want to be left out. We don't want to be uh, left behind from the tribe. The tribe moves on. The nomads, they move on, and we're left behind. Oh my goodness. Nothing scarier than that. So that taps into our primal brain and says to us, I gotta be in on this. I gotta know what's going on. I gotta take part. I gotta be part of this tribe. So how do you handle that?
How do I handle that?
Yeah.
I I have a deeper awareness of when I am personally stressed out, and I realize that when I am really stressed out, I tend to make bad decisions. So,
Mm,
what I have been doing is when I personally am stressed out, I do what I can to, remove the things that I'm likely to buy or remove all of those distractions from my line of sight. I also have a pretty strong sense of myself, and it really helps me to disengage from some of those trappings. Now, when I first became an entrepreneur, I thought I had to do everything.
mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why I talk about distractions and information overload a lot, is because I really, really felt it at a significant level when I first got started, because I believed that things were quicker than they actually are. And I think that if you believe that things are quick and that you're behind because of this, that, and the other thing, it's a good time to like take a step back and say, no, I'm not behind. It's that building a business is difficult and it takes time. And I need to be consistently marketing and showing up, and in order to be effective, I also need to beat back the fear of missing out. The related one on that, I think, is YOLO. So you only live once. So
Yeah.
you feel like you have to do all of the things
Mm,
because you have a fear of missing out, and life is short and you don't want to miss out on that. You want to do all of the things. So I think that when people realize, and it's interesting because Gary Vaynerchuk is not somebody that I necessarily ascribe to, but he's been talking about some really interesting things lately, and he shared a video from when he first did Wine Library. So he did start on YouTube back in, I think, like 2003 or something really early, and his first videos were bad, and he's like, "It's not that you should have done it back in 2003, it's that now you need to do it all the time, and you need to be consistent," and that's what I did, and if you think that this all happened for me overnight, you've got it wrong. And I love that because I use that example a lot, is if you could find the very first videos by him, they are a lot different than what you see today, and it's because of practice.
yeah. And perfecting and finding what works, and which is a process. You gotta keep,
Yeah.
moving through that funnel of, getting rid of the fluff and getting
Oh,
down
yeah.
to what works.
Well, and not only that, it's also that he has a huge staff and a big company,
Well, yeah.
and many of the people that I work with and talk to, around town, they don't have that.
Mhm.
So when you say like, "Well, I mean, I should be like that in like 2 years," it's like there's a reality check here.
Yeah.
He started doing this like almost 20 years ago, and the person that you're seeing today is much different than that person, and he has a big staff and people who are, it may be his thoughts and his ideas, but somebody else is editing it. He might be writing some of the posts, but maybe he's getting help in ways that many small business owners are not getting
Yeah.
when it comes to marketing. And that's why, like, you need to find strategies like many of the things we've talked about to help you beat back the information overload, beat back the FOMO, so that you can start marketing and start doing things over and over and over again to be effective. One of the books I was reflecting on this morning is by Mark Schaefer. He's one of my favorite marketers. Yes, I am a marketer who reads books by marketers. And
Yeah, awesome.
because why not, you know? And his book is called Cumulative Advantage. And it's really great because it talks about, in a very real way, how small businesses need to go about their marketing. And guess what? It's not jumping from thing to thing to thing. It's about the cumulative advantage of all of your work, of all of the things that you've talked about over an extended period of time, all the ways that you've helped people, how you communicate that over and over and over again, and how over time that adds up to something really great. And it's a great book, and it really speaks to a lot of the issues that we're talking about here. One of the big problems with marketing is people give up too soon.
Hmm, interesting.
They do one live stream and they say, "Well, that didn't work, nobody watched."
Yeah, yeah,
And they go on to the next thing. And that's
mhm,
really the fear that I have with what you were talking about earlier, where, you're talking about all the distractions,
mhm,
well, now I'm gonna make money from NFTs, or now I'm gonna make money, you know, and it's like you've never even given yourself time to be good at anything.
yeah, yeah, and you gotta find what fits and what feels right, It feels right to work with this kind of person who has this specific problem, and I solve it in this specific way, and that's fun, and it fits with me, and you stick with that, and then that I think is finding that good fit takes time. It's like going to a shoe store and trying on every shoe in the store. Once you've found, and I did this, I went to a store where they fit you for running shoes or running and walking, and
Mhm.
they tried probably we tried on 10, 15 pairs of shoes, and he watched me walk. They a walking path in the store. He watched me walk. Am I doing this or this, or how am I walking? Measured my feet and all the different things. And one toe is the second toe is longer than the first toe, and that's true in some people. And that will change what shoe you're going to wear. And so he finally got me down to one type of shoe, the Asics Kahuna, and size 8.5, 9. And I have bought that same shoe ever since. I don't even bother trying on
Yeah,
Nikes
no.
and Reeboks and whatnot because they don't fit my feet as well. It has been determined. This is what fits. I stick with it. So
You stick
it
with it.
makes my life easier. One less decision what kind of shoe to buy. I go to Big Five. I have my coupon and I say I want that, and then I get those, and shopping's done. And so
Right.
it takes the same thing with everything in your life, finding the best fit and then sticking with it.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you mentioned in there is the problem with information overload is it leads to decision fatigue. And one of the ways that you can eliminate decision fatigue. So this is what Shelly's talking about when she says, I know exactly which pair of Asics, this has been determined, it's the fit, this is what works for me. When you find yourself having trouble making decisions, you have to eliminate all of the distractions that are keeping you from that decision. Another way of this happening that we see, whether we're aware of it or not, are people who Steve Jobs used to do this when he was alive, and Mark Zuckerberg does it today, and a handful of other leaders do it too, is they eliminate all of the clothes to be like a almost like a uniform. And that's why you see
Mhm.
people wearing the same clothes over and over again. The
Yep.
the, the black turtleneck sweater really had a lot to do with decision fatigue. It was like, I know that this is what I'm wearing and I'm willing to do it. So the things that you can do in your business to eliminate overload and to prevent decision fatigue are very helpful. The thing that we need to be aware of is our timelines and measurements and how long we're going to give something, because the other fear on the other side is, you stick with something too long,
Mhm.
and that's where you need to really talk to people and find out what a reasonable timeline is on whatever project it is. It's also another way of putting it, to talk about your analogy, is what if ASICS changes the design of that shoe? How are you going to know that that's no longer working for you?
Yeah.
You know, you've had a fitting, you have a really good sense of when you put that shoe on how it's fitting and that it's going to work, and you always have to be on the lookout the next time you try it on, you
I do
know.
try them on first before I buy them, so that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still check it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it fit? Does it still fitting me? Is it still working for me? Yeah, I do that. And, um, that's something that people need to think about. Is there a clear demarcation of this is over, it's time to move on? When Toby and I were doing the show about treasure hunting, the treasure got found on June 6th, 2020, and at that point we said, "That's over.
Yeah.
Let's move on." And, there were a lot of people with us at that point were like, "No, we don't wanna move on." There are still people in that community who refuse to move on and still gather, still talk about it, and we're like, "We've moved on." So you
Yeah.
gotta look for those signs that it's time to try a different thing or
Try a
move
different thing.
move on in your business.
And, to Julia's point, yes, it's hard to know how long to try something before deciding, whether to stick with it. I think that that is where measuring results really comes into play. So it's like, not only am I going to do this new thing, but I have to understand what success looks like. So you have to have a clear definition of what it
Mhm.
means to succeed. And what metrics are you going to be looking for to see if you're seeing even a small return on your investment of time and effort and what it is that you're doing.
Mhm.
And you have to really, before you make decisions, reinforce that by talking to others. Don't make decisions based on your gut all the time. You sometimes have to go out and you have to reach out and find out if people are engaging in a certain platform. For example, if you are looking at social media, or if people are even interested in TikTok. We've talked about TikTok, for example, as a platform that a lot of people are
Yeah.
interested in. Have you asked your customers if they're on TikTok? If they're buying things from TikTok, if
Mm.
that's a decision platform for them, for example.
Mhm.
So, finding out how long to try something, sometimes it is hit or miss, sometimes it does take a while. So don't give up too soon, but then also do some investigative work around whether or not the decision will work, and then also take the time to think about what success really looks like, and clearly defining that can really sometimes help you decide how long to stick with something.
Yes. Yeah, and success can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It isn't just about money. It's, there's are you achieving the things in your life that you really want to achieve? And as we get older, it's becomes even more about, am I leaving a legacy? Am I helping the world? Am I, making a difference in people's lives? There's a lot of other values that come into play, especially as we get older, or we become less concerned about money because, okay, I'm good on money, I have all my needs met. Now what else is out there that I need to work on in my life? I have time for it, so let's do that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, are you ready to talk about tweak of the week? Do you have
We can
any
do tweak of the week.
closing thoughts on this topic, or
um I would say that a lot of times things come up, gotta be on gotta be on TikTok, gotta do this, gotta do that. When that starts to bombard you and you get to the point where you're like, either, I'm gonna turn it all off and try to ignore it, but it keeps bombarding you sometimes.
Mhm.
Even when you do that, and like, I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope," and then there comes a point where you're so tired, right? You've reached that fatigue point of saying no. They're like, "Well, maybe I'll listen this time." So, when you get to that point where you're just like, "I don't know what to do," get some help. Talk to
Mhm.
some people who you believe in, who you believe share the same values, the same priorities that you do. Maybe work with a coach, reach out to Jen or me and share your ideas and what's going on in your life. And we can help you get through those moments of, I don't know which way to turn. Should I do the TikTok? Should I stay with what I'm doing now? Reach out and get that coaching. And that's what we're here for, to just be that sounding board and help you to make those really thought out decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
But we can do tweak of the week now. Where's my tweak?
Woohoo!
Purple. Yeah. Tweak of
Yeah.
the week. My tweak of the week is alignable.
Hmm.
I have had an alignable account for a couple of years and I haven't done anything with it because I'm just like, is this anything? Or, no, is it just a LinkedIn wannabe? What is it? And then the last couple of weeks, I have been investigating it more. I've been attending networking. Online networking events put out by people who are affiliated with Alignable. They're looking for more associates to bring people into Alignable, and it's just a matter of bringing people in and bringing them together, and then just meeting up with people and getting to build those relationships and find out who's doing what, and maybe they can be a referral partner for me, or maybe we can just be friends because they we have a lot in common and we like the same things, whatever. So if you haven't looked at Alignable, check it out. It's very similar to LinkedIn. It's they have, if you're on the free account, you can have 10 opportunities per month to reach out and connect with people, but they will connect you automatically with anybody on your email list. Um, and they're not intrusive. Like I said, I've been there for 2 years and I have hardly even noticed that I'm there. But if you get involved and you start to really work with it, you can build up your network in that way. So,
Sure.
alignable.
I guess I'll give it another shot. I had a paid account for a while last year. I did some stuff with it. I never really, yeah, it didn't really work for me.
Hmm.
But I'm open because I know that they've been evolving it,
Hmm.
and they are doing more of a focus, I think, on really helping small businesses at this point.
Right.
And I think I was on the cutting edge of it, and I
Well,
sometimes I
they've
do
added a
that.
few features, as you said, they've added groups for one thing.
Yeah.
So you can be in a group that's, your biggest interest when it comes to
Yeah.
business. Is it marketing or is it even, more granular than that? And find a group that fits for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tweak of the week. Gosh, I can't really think of anything right now. I think I was mostly pretty keyed up about talking about dissolving information overload. I am
Mhm.
excited because I have a course I mean, it's all up in there. We're working on finishing some sales pages, and I sent off a audiobook today, like it's under review from all these platforms. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited that I've learned how to do an audiobook. I think that that's
Mhm.
kind of a neat thing, and we'll see what happens. Everything's kind of an adventure and a test. So that's my tweak is if you're interested in doing something, give it a shot.
Yeah. And then you can share it with others.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always my thought too when I try something new. I'm like, well, I'll learn something and then maybe I can teach it to somebody else, you know?
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
So, inspiration?
Let's inspire everybody here. Um, so my inspirational nugget is comes from my daily Stoic book, and everything is neutral until we add our interpretation, our perspective, or opinion to it. So we get a choice. Do we want to look at a neutral event uh, as positive or negative? And we get to choose. So you say, well, I have to go get an MRI and I've got some kind of weird medical stuff going on right now. I could put a negative spin on that, or I could put a positive spin on that. You know, I'm learning about my health and I'm being proactive, and and that's really good for me as a person to be proactive,
Mhm.
take take action, and to be my own advocate. Even if that's starting off in the medical field, it can translate into other areas of my life.
Yeah.
So we have that choice of choosing whether to see it as a positive or a negative.
I agree, and I think that for me, it extends into that idea of presence. So if I get really stressed out, I sometimes stop and say, "Hey, what's going on right now?" And then I realize, "Oh, hey, I realize the good things and I can weigh it a little bit through a different lens and make those choices a little bit better if I make sure that I'm actually present in the actual moment and not thinking about the past or worrying about the future." And that's really been helpful to hit the pause button.
Yeah. It's always good to be aware of what's going on around you and the big picture.
That's right.
It's when we get too focused on those little granular details, sometimes we miss the big picture.
That's right. Well,
Awesome.
are we good?
I think we're good.
All right.
I don't feel overwhelmed at all. I
Me
feel
either.
calm and
Yeah.
at peace. So, thank you all for being here today, and, yeah, be proactive and reach out to us and let us know what you're thinking, what kinds of advice that you need to help you in your business or in your life, and we'll do our best to answer your questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining the Women Conquer Business podcast, hosted by Shelley Carney and Jen McFarland. Please subscribe and leave a comment or question regarding your most challenging content creation or business problem. Then share this podcast with family and friends so they can find the support they need to expand their brand and share their message with the world. Check the show notes for links to valuable resources and come back again next week.